Hey everybody. Going to make sure that I'm in here. All right. Can someone just pop into chat and tell me that you can hear me, just so I know. All right, awesome. Well, welcome to another day of yoga. It's a little bit sunnier out today, so that's making me pretty happy. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, really helps your overall mood. So socks come off, hoodies come off, etc. And let's find our nice, comfortable seated position. And then, as usual, we're going to change it up. So switch to your wrong crisscross applesauce configuration. Still feels weird. Doesn't really change week to week, session to session. This is always going to feel strange. It's fine. All right. And as usual, we are going to start by just closing our eyes. And we are just going to take 10 nice deep breaths in through the nose, out through the nose, just to sort of get ourselves into the yoga zone here. And again, we're thinking about expanding that belly every time we inhale and then letting it all release on our exhale. It's a weird thing to get used to doing, but the reason we do this in yoga for cyclists is because it's going to help you a lot when you're actually back to racing your bikes. The ability to actually take a deep breath, most people never really learn how to do. Most people are breathing very shallow most of their lives. So it's really important to practice this. So take a slow inhale through your nose, really let that belly expand, and then let it all out. Few more just like that. Think about maybe sitting up a little bit taller. When we're kind of hunched over, we tend to sort of compress our spines, compress our bellies a little bit, so it's harder to get that full breath. So again, that good posture becomes so much more important, helps us a ton when we're on the bike. So think about a cord coming down from the ceiling and attaching to the top of your head and keeping you nice and straight. 2 more breaths. Make this last one really, really count. Make your belly go as big as you can get it. Hold it at the top and then release it. And open up your eyes. All right, let's try, you know what? We're gonna try left hand to start today. So we're gonna get our left hand up in the air. We're gonna bring it back behind us on the ground. We're gonna bring our right hand to our left knee and we're gonna look over that left shoulder. And if you want a little bit more of a spinal twist, you can maybe use that right hand to tug on that left knee a bit just to get a little deeper. And think about not hunching into this. You know, think about that cord still being attached to your head, still making you sit up nice and tall. And deep breaths here. Might not be quite as deep. It's harder to get the belly to expand when you're twisted like this, but it's that internal massage for your organs. And release that left hand. We're going to bring that left arm up and over and tilt to the right. And maybe look up at the ceiling. Really start to let yourself almost fall. Not quite, but almost. And keep breathing. And bring it back to center and shake it out. Like you're one of those wobbly things that, you know, has a fan in it that's outside car dealerships. Anyway, all right, straighten back up, let your shoulders drop. Now we're gonna bring our right arm up in the air, bring it back behind us, left hand comes to our right knee, and we're gonna look over that right shoulder. And if you've been on this yoga class for the last couple weeks, you know we've traditionally started on the right. So maybe think about, does this feel any different this time? Does it feel a little easier to look over this right shoulder now that we've stretched to the left? And again, this is so good for when you're riding on the road a lot and you're trying to, check behind you for cars. It's so important to be able to look in both directions over your shoulder, but it's not really something we work on. Check in. Are you sitting up nice and tall? Keep breathing. And release that left hand, bring it up and over, tilt to your left. Sorry, release the right hand and tilt to your left. Maybe look up at the ceiling. Feel like you're about to fall over, but you're not going to. Really try to focus on getting this stretch all along your right side rib cage. And bring it back to center and shake it out. Feel goofy here in your own home. There's no video up. Doesn't really matter what you're doing. All right. All right, let's bring our legs just straight out in front of you. Maybe don't look at my feet, they're kind of gross. And from here, we're gonna do just a forward fold. So I'm gonna sit up nice and straight, sitting nice and tall. And what I don't want is for everybody to start hunching their shoulders like so to reach their toes. This is not really helping stretch anything. What I want you to do is keep that nice tall shape and just hinge at the hips slightly forward. And I have very bad flexibility here. So this is about as far as I can get where I'm still keeping my torso straight. So play with that. And just find the place where, you're actually feeling a stretch. Should be all throughout your hamstrings primarily. But if you're actually staying up straight, this should actually feel kind of like core work as well. It actually does take work to stay this tense in your core. And release. Shake it out. Roll your feet from side to side. All right, let's come up onto all fours. And we're just gonna hit our usual cat-cow, get our spines nice and warmed up. So instead of thinking about arching our back, we're actually gonna think about dropping our hips and then dropping our heads, and our back will sort of arch as a result. But really think about pushing into those hips and letting them drop as much as you can while, being on your hands and knees. So they're not dropping backwards, they're not coming behind you like you're going into child's pose, they're dropping down. And then slowly we're gonna reverse that. So we're gonna start bringing our hips up. And our chest comes up, our chin comes up. And our stomach drops as a result. I think a lot of the time we think about just arching the top of our back to do cat, and then think about just dropping our stomach to do cow. But really we want to think about the whole thing. Those two things are just sort of the results and how you end up. So we're going to slowly make our way back into cat, letting your hips drop, chest drop, chin drop. And then bringing that chin and chest back up, bringing your hips back up. And let's just do that 2 more times, just at your own pace. Just keep flowing through it. And keep breathing. There's sort of no right or wrong whether you're supposed to inhale or exhale as you go in or out of cat or cow. It's sort of just whatever feels right for you. And then your next one, just find your way back to a nice normal tabletop. All right, and we are going to just get into my favorite circle flow. So we're going to drop our hips, drop our chests, drop our heads into cat. And then we're going to slowly bring our hips up, our chest up, our chin up into cow. We're going to tuck our toes. We're going to pop our knees up. And then we're going to press our butts up and back into a downward dog. So while we're here, I want you to focus on one thing for today. And maybe that's getting your right heel down closer to the ground, or your left heel down. Or just even being able to pause instead of constantly pedaling while you're in here. Maybe it's thinking about getting your shoulder blades to flatten so that you get more of a flat spine triangle effect. Maybe it's thinking about letting your head just relax while you're in it, so it's a little bit less aggressive of posture. But set an intention for your downward dog today. And then we're just gonna hover forward into our plank, drop our knees, toes come out, and press your butt back into child's pose. And we'll hang out here for just a couple quick breaths. And just come back into that tabletop pose. Maybe reset your hands if they've gotten too far forward. And let's do that one more time. So we're gonna drop our hips, drop our chest, chin into our cat. Really feel like an angry cat here. You know, like you just got startled by something, like even make that sound. No one can hear you. And then let everything come on back up into that cow. Very proud cow here. Really try to get that chest up. And then tuck your toes, pop your knees, and press it up and back into downward dog. Think about that point of focus for today. For me, it's going to be really trying to find that flat back. It's never going to be perfect, but you can give it a shot. And then hover it on forward to plank. And drop your knees, toes come out, press it back into child's pose. And just let your head hit the mat and really relax. If you've been doing this for a couple weeks, maybe think about, you know, how much deeper you've gotten, if at all. If you haven't, that's totally fine. If you have, that's great. All right, I want you to take your hands and I want you to start walking them towards your right side. Your head sort of goes along for the ride, just between them. And eventually it's gonna start just pressing up against your left shoulder or top of your arm. But walk as far as is comfortable. And just sort of sink in. Let your right shoulder drop. Sort of breathe into that tight hip maybe. And maybe you'll notice you can actually get a little bit lower, get your butt a little bit closer to your heels. With every breath, just think about getting a little bit deeper. And then slowly start to walk your hands back to the middle. Nice small little movements. And then we're gonna walk them over towards our left side. Our head will probably start hitting the top of our right arm. And just let it relax. Find a place that feels like a really good stretch on your right side but isn't painful. And think about breathing into your left hip. Every breath you take, maybe you're getting just a little tiny bit deeper. You probably wouldn't be able to tell if you watched yourself on video. Often when we say deeper, it doesn't really translate to anything more than a millimeter or two, but you'll feel it. And that's what we're looking for. And then slowly start to walk it back to the center. Maybe twist your arms a little bit, bring them up and down. Just sort of working into those shoulder joints a tiny bit. And then make your way on up to your knees. And then just make your way up to standing. All right. Again, we're gonna find our really nice strong mountain pose. So I'm gonna lift your toes up. And then I want you to think really carefully about putting them back down. So you're almost trying to get each individual toe to touch the mat at a different time. Just they're really planted in there. All right. Give your shoulder blades maybe a roll back. Just get them into a nice, comfortable position. And we're going to inhale our arms all the way up. We're going to look up. We're going to do a tiny little back bend, and then we are going to swan dive it forward into our forward fold. Just hang out here, find your comfortable place, whether it's your hands on your shins or ankles or toes or the mat in front of you. Just fairly relaxed feeling. Make sure those feet are still really neatly rooted into the mat. And then we're gonna bend our knees just slightly, maybe like a 20-degree angle. And then we're gonna bring our arms up in the air and come into a chair pose. So we're gonna stay here for a few breaths, so really settle in. Maybe think about sending your butt just back and down a tiny bit more, really hinging at the hip. Sort of almost playing with your balance a little bit. Really focus on those toes staying on the ground. That's what's gonna keep you upright and not falling backwards. Keep breathing. Maybe try to turn on different muscles in your legs. See if you can start getting your quads to contribute, or see if you can make your butt do a little more work. Play around with what's happening. 2 more breaths. And you might notice that this feels a lot like when you're going downhill on the mountain bike in the ready position. Except hopefully your arms are not out like this. That would be problematic. And straighten up your legs. Let your arms come back down into that forward fold. And take a nice deep breath. On your next inhale, we're just going to straighten our back so that we make a nice 90-degree angle between our backs and our legs. And then exhale, come back down to forward fold. And depending where you are on the mat, we're going to either walk our hands forward or walk our feet forward or backward to get into our plank. And we're going to find our good, strong plank position. So really thinking about creating one good line. Butt is not up too high, butt is not down too low. Just nice straight line. Everything should be activated. And slow race it down to the ground. Toes come out on the mat. We're going to bring our hands far and wide of the mat. And on our next inhale, we're going to press on up into a little baby cobra. Think about how your back is feeling today. Does this feel too easy? Does this feel really hard? Definitely no right or wrong answer. Focus on those shoulders staying nice and down, looking straight ahead. And slowly lower back down to the mat. Hands come back to either side of your chest, tuck your toes. And press it back up into plank. And up and back into downward dog. Again, check in on that thing you were going to work on today. So, pedaling, really trying to straighten our spine, trying to lift our butt a little bit farther back. Maybe even just thinking about getting your fingers to feel like they're really in contact with the mat here. And slowly walk your feet up to meet your hands. Into that forward fold. Now from here, I want you to take a big step with your right foot just out to the side. So we're just making a nice big triangle. I'll just turn so it's easier to see here. So you might find that it's more comfortable to have your feet just a little bit out. We really want to focus on our hamstrings, not hurting our knees while we're doing this. And we're gonna come into a wide angle forward fold. So we're actually gonna be sending our hips back while we start bending down. Gives us a little more room to play. So you might get here, you might get farther. Again, forward folds, not really my best flexible thing, but that means we need to include them more often. And just let your head deactivate. Really pay attention to how your knees are feeling. If you start feeling like they're unstable, you might need to come in a little more. You might need to change your foot angle. And we're gonna just take our hands and we're gonna walk them over towards our right side, trying to not bend either knee. And keep that head deactivated. Nice deep breaths. And then slowly walk it back to center. Pause here for a second. You might realize you need to shift your feet a little bit. And slowly start to walk toward your left side. And keep it up with those deep breaths. You might realize one side you can go a lot deeper than the other side, and that's totally fine. It's pretty normal to have a dominant side or a more flexible side. And let your head relax if you're starting to tense up. And then walk it back to center. And then just heel toe your feet back in so that you're in a nice normal forward fold. And from here, we're just gonna slowly come on back up to standing in that nice strong mountain pose. Maybe give our shoulders another roll back. Check in, make sure we're really activating our core and our quads and our butts and our hamstrings. Maybe lift your toes, bring them back down. All right, let's sweep our arms up again. We're gonna look up. And then swan dive it forward into another forward fold. Just gonna stay here for a second. Then we're gonna inhale and flatten our back to that 90-degree angle. And then drop it back into a forward fold. And walk your hands forward or step your feet back into plank. And slow race all the way to the ground. Toes come out. Arms come forward, Superman style. We're just gonna do one locust today. So on your next inhale, we're gonna lift everything but our pelvis. So from head to toe, everything comes up except for our hips. Ready? Let's do it. You're a bird. You're a plane. You are flying through the air on your way to save the world. One day I'm gonna think of a good Marvel analogy for this, but I'm a DC person, so Superman is who you get. Almost there, and let it go. Huh. Pause for a breath here. We've earned it. And hands come back to either side. Tuck your toes. Press it up into a plank. And back on into downward dog. Think about that downward dog. What are you focusing on? Here, we're gonna bring our right foot up and back in the air. And then we're gonna step it up between our hands. We're gonna pause. We're gonna get nice and strong in our back leg here, still on our toes. And then we're gonna sweep our arms up into a high lunge. We're just gonna settle in here for a couple breaths. Think really nice and strong in that back leg. This is a really good hip opener for the left side. Check in with your toes. You should be able to see them over your knee. If you can't, then you have come too far forward and your knees are at risk, so we don't want that. Keep breathing, nice and strong. It's really easy with poses like this to kind of get into like the comfortable version, where you're just kind of sagged and it's fine. You can stay here for a while, but really think about everything being active. And bring both hands down to either side of your right foot. Step it back into plank. Then I'm going to challenge you here. I want you to shift your feet towards the left. So we're going to come over onto the side of our left foot. Stack your feet. Bring that right hand up and off the ground and maybe up in the air. Find our nice side plank. If this is too hard, you can put a foot in front or a foot behind you. If this is too easy, you bring your right foot up. More of a starfish vibe. And keep breathing. One more breath. And bring that right hand back down. Twist your back onto your regular plank configuration for your toes. And slowly lower all the way to the ground. Toes come out onto the mat. Hands come far and wide, maybe a little closer if the last Cobra felt good. And pause for a second. Catch your breath if you were out of it. Side planks are not for the weak. All right, let's inhale and press it on up into whatever age Cobra you feel is appropriate. And with every breath, just really think about sort of massaging those internal organs, especially the parts where your stomach is still on the ground. If you want a bit more active posture, you can really activate your butt so that your toes come up off the floor. And let's slowly bring it back down. We're gonna bring our hands back to either side of our chest, tuck our toes, press it up into plank, and back into downward dog. Maybe pedal out the feet a little bit. Do it really slowly and spend some time on each foot. All right, let's bring that left leg up and back in the air. And then step it forward between your hands. Get that right leg really active, really turned on. And bring both arms up into a high lunge. Really focusing on the right hip this time. Check in, make sure you can see your toes over your left knee. And almost think about trying to get your right heel down. You're not going to get it down to the ground, but thinking about trying to push it down or back is going to help you get that better stretch in the hip. And don't forget to breathe. Two more breaths here. Think about even activating your core. Again, you don't really need to here. You could just kind of cheat this one, but really think about being strong in this, that if someone came over and just like, oof, pushed you, you would still be upright. And let's bend down, bring our hands back to either side of our foot, step it back into plank. And then this time we're gonna bring our feet over to the right side. So we're onto our side of our right foot. Maybe stack our feet if that's easy for us. And this time left hand comes up in the air. If that's too hard, you can bring a foot back or forward for better balance. If that's too easy, you can consider looking up at the ceiling. or lifting that left leg off the ground or off of your right foot. And keep breathing. About all of your muscles staying active. One more breath. And left hand comes back down, roll onto both sets of toes, and slow race down to the ground. And toes come out. Hands come out far and wide, maybe walk them in a little more. All right, ready? Let's inhale it on up into Cobra. And maybe if that's feeling great, you can even walk your hands a little bit closer, get a little more into the stretch. But I find with this one, the goal always tends to be this, how can I get into this full Cobra? But really, we sort of all need what we need. So there's baby Cobra is going to do more for you than jamming yourself into fully grown Cobra. Check in on your shoulders. Are they nice and dropped? And look straight ahead. And then slowly lower down, bit by bit. Really thinking about massaging those organs against the mat as you come down. And then pause here for a couple breaths. All right, hands come back to either side of your chest. Tuck your toes, press it up into plank, and back into downward dog. Good news, most of the hard stuff is done. Maybe pedal your feet. This is one of the last times we're gonna be in downward dog, so really think back to that early intention, thing that you wanna work on. And let's bring that right leg up and back in the air. And we're gonna bring our knee forward, shin's gonna come down, tops of our toes are gonna come down, and left leg is gonna come out on the mat, left toes come down on the mat. And we're coming into every cyclist's favorite posture, the pigeon. And if you really wanna work on your low back, you can stay up in this sort of high pigeon. Get a bit of a mini back bend. This is a good one to stay in if you're hoping to improve your Cobra for some reason. But if you want to get a bit more hip action, you can slowly start to walk your hands forward. Maybe come down on your elbows. Maybe you bring your head down. Wherever you end up, we're just going to keep moving from side to side, just a tiny bit. Not making any major moves, just little shifts. Noticing if there are any new hot spots, or, you know, if something's feeling actually a little looser since you've been doing this more often. Think about letting more of your body start to relax. So that might mean letting your shoulders relax a little more. Might mean letting your head rest on the mat. Sort of the looser you can make all of the other parts of your body, the easier it is to work your way into these stretches. It's pretty amazing how tension travels. So even if somehow your like left foot is super tensed up, and actually everyone can try that, like flex your left foot and see how different that makes the stretch. And that's a really obvious one, but if your shoulders are tense, then your spine is tense. If the top of your head is tense, then your neck is tense and your spine is tense. And that's going to affect how deep we can get into the hip. So in some stuff, holding tension is a good thing, and in other in times like this, we don't want to be holding any tension. And when you're ready, bring your head on back up. Maybe start walking those hands back so they're next to your knee or just ahead of it. We're going to tuck our back toes. We're going to lift our left knee to give us some space. And then we're going to step it back into plank and press it up and back into downward dog. Last downward dog. So really focus on that thing you wanted to focus on. Whether it's the foot pedal, whether it's getting maybe your right foot all the way down to the ground, get your right heel down there. Or maybe it's, straightening your back a little more. Maybe it's bringing your butt up a little bit higher. Maybe it's not tensing your head. Maybe it's as simple as just pressing those fingers much deeper into the mat. And let's bring that left leg up and back. And then sweep that left knee up between the hands. Shin comes down, toes come down. And then right leg comes out back behind you. Toes come down to the mat. And maybe you stay up here in this little back bend pre-Cobra kind of stretch. Or maybe you walk down to your elbows. Maybe you go a little farther and let your head drop. But again, we're going to keep moving. Keep rocking those couple inches. Maybe even just a couple centimeters or millimeters. You just don't want to stay completely still. And again, do a quick little scan, see where you're holding any tension. I know if you're on your elbows, you're going to tend to hold some tension in your shoulders. Maybe you can bring your elbows a little bit wider. Maybe let your head come down if that's available to you. If it isn't, no big deal. You can even create like a little cradle for your head with your fists. If that helps you let some of the tension from your head go. Really play around, see what's going to make you the most relaxed on the mat while still moving through from side to side with your hips. And when you're ready, we're going to slowly start to walk our hands back on up. Coming to either side of our knee. We're going to tuck our toes, lift our right knee, step it back into plank. And then we're just going to drop our knees, let our toes come out again, and press it back into child's pose. And relax here for a second. Maybe actually tip a little bit from left to right a couple times. See if you can get any deeper into it. And then come on up to your hands and knees. And then make your way on over to your butt. So you're sitting. And then bring it on back down. So we're lying on the mat. Knees are up in the air. Feet are a few inches from our butts. And we're going to bring our right ankle to our left knee, like we're casually talking on the phone to somebody. We're going to bring our right hand through that triangle we've made. We're going to lift our left leg up in the air, or our left foot up in the air at a 90-degree angle. Bring our left hand around, grab our right hand, and then we're going to lean back. And like we've done before, we're going to do some foot circles here. So I just want 3 really slow foot circles in both directions. So really think about, it's not going to feel very good and it's not going to feel very fluid, but I want you to think about making a good circle. And then reverse it, go in the other direction. Try to really let your foot do the work. Don't let your shin just kind of like fake it. It's pretty easy to do a circle when you're letting your calf get in on the game, but we really want to think about your toes leading the way. And that's going to work a lot of these tiny little muscles that rarely get used, especially for cyclists. Then we're going to release our hands. Our left foot's going to come down, and then our right foot is going to topple over toward our left side. So it comes down all the way to the ground. And we're going to bring our arms out either all the way up to the side or in a T if we're in the room with someone and we don't want to hit them in the face. And we're going to look over our right shoulder. Nice deep belly breaths. Think about your stomach expanding all the way and then releasing. If it helps you can even take your left hand and put it on your stomach and really kind of challenge yourself to see how high up you can get it. And when you're ready, bring it on back through center, unhook that right ankle. And this time we're going to bring our left ankle to our right knee. We're going to bring that right hand through the triangle you've made. We're going to bring our right foot up in the air and bring our left hand around our left. Sorry, I flipped things. Left hand comes through the triangle. Right hand comes around our right leg. Hang on to it. And then tilt it on back. And let's do those foot circles on this side. Again, thinking really slow and really awkward. And pay attention to where the sticky spots happen. They're not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just very easy to fake a good foot circle. And that's not going to help us stretch these very underutilized muscles. You might hear some popping or cracking, and that's totally okay. And when you're done with those, let your hands go. We're going to bring our right foot down to the ground, and then the left foot topples to the right side. And arms come out to either side in a cactus or a T, and we look over our left shoulder. And just really breathe into that left hip. I know it's cheesy to think about breathing into a certain body part, but sometimes that is a cue that really helps people actually let something go. And again, it comes back to that idea we were talking about before about releasing tension. Often, we kind of cram ourselves into these stretches and hang on to them for dear life. But in ones like this, you're not really getting a lot of benefit if you just keep things tight. You really want to work on just letting them go. And that might mean you come slightly out of it. It might mean, if you watch my foot, it's going to start shifting slightly farther out. But my hip is relaxing, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's what we're trying to do. And when you're ready, bring it on back to center. Release that leg, and then legs come out in front of us. Toes can come out to, or feet come out to kind of either side. Alternatively, if you have a wall near you, you can do some legs up the wall here. So find your comfortable place. If you do legs up the wall, you don't necessarily need them to be straight up against the wall. You can maybe be a few inches out if that's going to be a little more comfortable for your hamstrings. Again, our idea here is not to be in tension, it's to be relaxed. Arms can just kind of come out to your sides wherever they're comfortable. We're going to close our eyes and we're going to breathe for 1 minute. And I promise you, I have a watch. I will not let anyone fall asleep. So close your eyes and just take probably around 10 to 12 deep breaths. And we're going to start wiggling our fingers and toes, maybe even our wrists and our ankles. If you're up the wall, maybe tilt over to your right side, kind of curl up in a ball a little bit. And then slowly make your way on back up to sitting. All right. So that ends another Yoga for Cyclists session. Thank you so much for joining me for this. It keeps me accountable to doing my yoga, so hopefully it's doing the same for you. If you have any questions, you can pop on over into chat. You can even do private if you don't want everyone to see them. Yeah, and we'll be doing this again next week. So thank you so much for coming, and have a great rest of your week, guys. Namaste.